The lights above the Senate Judiciary Committee chamber buzzed quietly. A soft, constant hum that couldn't drown out the rising tension in the room. It was a regular oversight hearing on paper, but everyone present felt something else in the air. Cameras clicked into position. Reporters whispered. Senators filed in with practice.com, their aides trailing behind with folders, tablets, and tired expressions. At the far end of the long wooden table sat Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the room like a man watching the first cracks form before a storm. A simple ballpoint pen twirled between his fingers. The glint in his gaze didn't match his laid-back drawl. It was the look of someone who knew exactly what he was walking into. Across from him sat Congressman Adam Schiff, known for his years in intelligence briefings, international diplomacy, and high-stakes investigations. Schiff was no stranger to the spotlight. His suits were always crisp, his words calculated, and his confidence high. Today, however, he looked unusually tense. His aides stood just a little too close, whispering last-minute details into his ear. The room quieted when the gavel struck the table. "This hearing will come to order," said the chairperson. "We are here to review congressional conduct during past foreign intelligence matters and the oversight of related funding decisions." For the first 10 minutes, it was routine. Questions were asked, notes were taken, and cameras occasionally cut to audience reactions. The kind of political theater Washington lived on. Then Kennedy leaned forward. "Congressman Schiff," he began, voice smooth like molasses, "you led one of the most visible intelligence inquiries in our nation's recent memory. My question is simple. When did you first become aware of foreign money flowing into political action committees connected to your district?" A subtle shift passed across Schiff's face. It wasn't fear, but discomfort, like a man who had expected a soft pitch and got a curveball instead. "I believe the question is misleading," Schiff replied tightly. "All contributions were legally reported. If you're implying misconduct, I'm implying facts," Kennedy cut in. "If you received over $3 million in donations over 5 years from international groups, can you confirm those groups had no connection to defense contracts or surveillance technology?" The room stirred. Few gasps. A low murmur from the press bench. Schiff sat back, his hands folded. His voice, when it came, was colder. "Senator Kennedy, frankly, you don't deserve to be here. You're nothing but a thug disguised as a man in a suit, putting on a cheap circus act for the cameras." The words echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. Reporters dropped their pens. One camera operator cursed under his breath and zoomed in. Even the chair paused, unsure whether to intervene. Kennedy didn't blink, simply tilted his head slightly, as if studying a painting he found mildly amusing. Then a slow, dangerous smirk crept onto his face. He leaned toward the microphone. "In Louisiana," he said softly, "being called a thug is a compliment, especially when it comes from a man who spends more time chasing Russian ghosts than helping the folks sleeping under bridges in Oakland." The chamber froze. Kennedy's eyes swept the room, voice still calm but slicing through the air like a knife. "You sit there in your suit talking about protecting democracy, while your own constituents' veterans, children are living in tents. You talk justice, while California drowns in needles and broken promises." The chair shifted uncomfortably, but didn't speak. No one did. Schiff's lips pressed into a thin line, but his eyes showed something else now: unease. Kennedy's hand moved slowly, deliberately. He placed a thick file on the table in front of him and tapped it once. "This," he said, "is a report your office quietly ignored. Oakland's mayor pleaded for federal housing funds. Sat on your hands, you gave speeches, but you didn't lift a finger. Why?" The sound of a pen dropping to the floor rang, out louder than it should have. One aide turned pale. Schiff opened his mouth to respond, but the chair raised a hand without looking at him. "Let him finish." Kennedy tapped the file again. "Page after page, Congressman. Requests for funding. Letters from families. Internal memos from your staff telling you the crisis was growing, and still nothing. But I'll tell you what did move through your office quickly. Approvals for surveillance pilot programs. Backed by companies headquartered overseas, who, by the way, happened to be some of your biggest donors. The room erupted in murmurs. Reporters were already texting their editors. One news anchor whispered to her producer, "This is about to explode." Kennedy sat back, still calm. "This isn't about insults," he said quietly. "It's about who's really serving the people in, who's serving themselves while pretending to do otherwise." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't point fingers, but the silence that followed was deafening. And that file's still untouched, like a ticking bomb between them. A new chapter had just begun, and nobody in that room knew how far it would go. The storm had started, and the winds were already shifting in Washington. The clip of Senator Kennedy's calm but cutting response went viral within hours. Every major news outlet, CNN, Fox, Al Jazeera, BBC, ran versions of the headline. Kennedy fires back in Louisiana. As compliment? Social media erupted. Hashtags like hashtag Kennedy v. Schiff, hashtag Oakland Files, and hashtag Thug or Truth began trending. The hearing, once considered a routine check on congressional procedure, had now become a national moment. But for Kennedy, it was never about that one exchange. Back in his office, away from the noise, he sat with his sleeves rolled up and the same file in front of him. This time, it was open. Page after page was marked in red ink. Each section highlighted corruption, misused funds, and unanswered letters from local governments across California begging for help. His senior aide, Claire Dunning, stood by the window. She had served 2 administrations, and her instincts were rarely wrong. "You know, this isn't just going to hurt Schiff," she said. "It's If we take it public polls, threads tied to contractors, donors, even people in your own party." Kennedy didn't look up. "That's the idea." Claire hesitated. "There's something else this morning. We got an anonymous message. No name, just this." She handed him a flash drive. Kennedy plugged it into his secure laptop. A single file appeared, encrypted, titled aid-12-crossfund-exports.he. Opened it. The document inside wasn't just damning, it was explosive. A quiet deal between a California tech firm and an unnamed European defense ministry. The firm had received millions in funding, and Schiff's signature appeared on 3 of the export license applications. The timeline matched the period when Oakland was begging for emergency housing funds. Kennedy's voice was calm but firm. "Call that reporter at the Ledger. It's the one who broke the surveillance funding leak last year. She's getting this file." Claire's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" Kennedy nodded. "We're not just pulling a thread now. We're ripping the whole damn sweater." Meanwhile, across town, Schiff's office was in full lockdown. Doors were closed, phones were off. The mood was tight. Schiff's legal team, PR advisors, and longtime political allies huddled behind closed doors. He stood at the center of it all, arms crossed, watching as one of his assistants briefed him. "They're not just after your record," the aide said. "They're hinting at Ukraine, sir. The 2015 mission, the diplomatic aid budget, and your private meetings in Brussels." Schiff's expression darkened. "That mission was classified. Not anymore." "Somebody's leaking." His jaw clenched. "We silence it now where it spreads." One of his lawyers spoke up. "We can. Try to suppress the Oakland file. Say it's outdated, already addressed. We'll deny the Europe connection. And if that fails," Schiff turned slowly, "if that fails, we play offense." By that evening, Kennedy was invited to appear on a primetime investigative program. A serious host, no nonsense. The kind of show that focused on facts, not drama. He agreed. During the live segment, the host asked him directly, "Senator, are you accusing Congressman Schiff of misusing his position for personal or political gain?" Kennedy leaned forward. Voice even. I'm not accusing, I'm showing. There are records of ignored cries for help, of redirection of funds, of priorities chosen not for the people, but for profit. And if the media doesn't investigate it, the people will. The host blinked. Do you have more evidence? Kennedy smiled slightly. I do. And tomorrow, the nation will see it. That night, the encrypted file made its way to multiple journalists. Copies were also sent to 2 foreign intelligence bureaus and on Capitol Hill. A single email lit up Schiff's phone. No name, just a line of text. You started a war. Are you ready to lose it? He stared at the screen. Outside Washington. Looked quiet, but everyone inside the city knew. The quiet never lasted. And this time, the fallout might be global. Washington didn't sleep that night. The encrypted file Kennedy leaked had detonated like a political grenade. Within 12 hours, 3 major news agencies confirmed the file's legitimacy. The contents were worse than expected, classified. Documents, international emails, back-channel approvals all tying Adam Schiff's office to a controversial tech contract with a European defense agency. The funding trail bypassed oversight committees and redirected federal funds under the guise of foreign policy R&D. By morning, the headlines weren't just about the Senate hearing. They were global. Congressmen under fire for secret. Arms tech deal. Schiff linked to denied housing relief while approving surveillance exports. Oakland forgotten. Where did the money go? Inside the White House, an emergency briefing was called. The chief of staff stood at the head of the table, flipping through printed versions of the leaked file. The Europeans are panicking, she said. They didn't expect this to surface. NATO is already sending questions through diplomatic back channels. The president rubbed his temple, his expression unreadable. Do we have any proof Schiff acted alone? Silence. Then a voice from the corner, his national security advisor. No. And that's the real problem. Cross town in a modest apartment in Arlington. Investigative journalist Erin Voss sat surrounded by red string and old files pinned to her wall. She had broken a dozen high-profile government corruption cases over the last 5 years. Now, she was staring at the biggest one of her career. Our source was a sitting senator. Her phone buzzed. Unlisted number, she answered. A voice, female, sharp and familiar. Miss Voss, I was Schiff's aide for 9 years. I have something you need to see. Go on. No, not over the phone tonight. Meet me where we met the Ukrainian attach last summer. I'll bring the real file. Voss's breath caught. She whispered, You're talking about the Brussels fund. Silence. Then the voice responded, Yes, and you've only seen the surface. Meanwhile, inside Schiff's private residence, all devices were off. Phones in the freezer, curtains drawn. The man who once relished the cameras now stood in front of a whiteboard covered with timelines, threats. And one key phrase written in red ink, July 12th, the briefcase. He muttered under his breath, They think they've won. They have no idea what that file left out. An aide approached cautiously. Sir, we've confirmed Kennedy's team is preparing for a follow-up hearing. They're framing it as a national accountability session. Schiff chuckled, dry and bitter. He wants to look like a hero, but he forgot something. I never act without a safety net. The aide frowned. You mean Schiff turned to face him? Operation Swan. Crossed the Capitol. Kennedy sat in a secured committee room with 3 other senators, all from different parties, conservative, liberal, independent. Strange bedfellows, but the file had united them. Senator Ramirez, a sharp-tongued veteran from New Mexico, tossed another report on the table. This isn't just about Schiff anymore. These funds pass through departments we all thought were locked tight. If this goes deeper, we're looking at systemic rot. Kennedy remained calm. Then we go deeper. No press. No headlines, just facts. But we do it our way. One of the others raised an eyebrow. And when Schiff fights back? Kennedy leaned in, then he exposes himself. That night, Erin Voss met the former agent under a dim parking garage in D.C. Jenna wore a hood and handed her a worn leather briefcase. This was the second file, Schiff's personal copy. It shows he diverted not just Oakland funding, but Puerto Rico relief money in 2019. You leak this, and he's finished. Erin opened it slowly. Her eyes scanned the pages, each one worse than the last. Government seals, account numbers, internal communications. A handwritten note at the bottom of one page. Keep quiet. We both win AS. She whispered this. This is criminal. Jenna nodded. He's still covering something bigger. Something involving foreign intelligence. Just then, a car engine roared to life nearby. Headlights flashed. Jenna turned. You weren't followed, right? I don't think so. Two men stepped out of the vehicle. Dark suits, no words. One reached into his coat. Jenna grabbed Erin's hand. Run. They sprinted toward the stairwell. Behind them, footsteps echoed, fast and heavy. But as they rounded the corner, the men vanished. No gunshots. No chase. Just silence. It was a warning. Erin and Jenna stopped, breathless. Jenna looked her in the eyes. You leak that file, you'll bring down half of D.C. Erin didn't blink. Then, let's start counting. The sun rose over Washington, but it didn't bring peace. By morning, news of Aaron Voss's Narambush in the parking garage had already leaked. The press didn't have details, only whispers. But the whispers were loud enough to send a message. Something dangerous was unfolding behind the headlines. Inside her apartment. Erin placed the leather briefcase on her table with shaking hands. Jenna had disappeared after they fled. No calls. No texts, not even a signal from her encrypted burner. The woman who had risked everything had simply vanished. But the briefcase remained. And inside it, more than just proof of Schiff's corruption, it held something else. A document marked top secret eyes only. It wasn't government issued. It had no official seal. Just two words typed in bold black font. Triangle Fund. Blow. It. A set of names. Congressmen, military contractors, tech CEOs. Foreign diplomats.n at the very bottom of the list. Two names sent a chill down Erin's spine. John Kennedy, Adam Schiff. She whispered aloud, "What the hell is this?" Crosstown, Kennedy sat alone in a dimly lit church. It was a habit he'd kept for years, not for prayer, but for silence. The echo of footsteps against marble helped him think. Claire, his aide, entered quietly and took the seat beside him. "You were right," she said. Schiff's team sent someone after the journalist. She got out, but barely. Kennedy nodded, eyes still forward. Jenna, no sign of her. A long pause, then Claire opened her notebook. Something else. The file Erin received. It contains your name. Finally, Kennedy turned. Go on. She hasn't published it yet, but she's asking questions. About you. About something called the Triangle Fund. Kennedy exhaled slowly. So it's back. Claire's voice lowered. What is it? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he looked up at the stained glass window. There was a time, 20 years ago, when I believed politics could change things. Then I saw how decisions were really made. Not in hearings, not in Congress, but in hotel suites, on yachts, in coded messages between old men who never stood for election. Claire leaned. And you were part of it. I was, he admitted, briefly, long enough to understand the cost, long enough to get out and Schiff. Kennedy's voice grew colder. He stayed in and he climbed. Meanwhile, at a private estate in Virginia, Schiff stood over a roaring fire. Around him, 3 men sat with glasses of whiskey and unreadable faces. One was an energy lobbyist. One, a former intelligence officer. The third, a silent man with a European accent who had never been publicly photographed. We warned you, the European said. You were sloppy. You let your temper ruin everything. Schiff didn't flinch. I can still fix it. The intelligence officer scoffed. No, you can't. It's out now. The briefcase is gone. Jenna's off the grid, and Kennedy. He's playing this perfectly. The lobbyist stood. Then you know what has to happen? There was silence. Then Schiff nodded slowly. I'll call in the favor. Back at her apartment, Erin prepared her next article. She had drafted half of it focusing on the misused Oakland funds and Schiff's connections to the defense contract. The deeper story the Triangle Fund she held back. She stared at Kennedy's name. Could he be one of them? Or was he something worse, a defector who now played hero? Her phone buzzed. A new email. Subject. No sender, just an image, a blurry photo of Jenna tied to a chair. Eyes wide, a gun in the frame, below it a single line. Stop digging. Erin froze. Her breath caught. Then she noticed something else in the image. The corner of a newspaper on the table behind. Jenna. Today's date, she was alive. For now, Erin closed her laptop, grabbed her recorder, and made one call to Kennedy's private line. He answered on the second ring. I know about the Triangle Fund, she said. I know you're on the list. Kennedy's voice was quiet. Then, you know why we can't stop now? I got a threat, she said. They've got Jenna. They want me out. Kennedy's reply was immediate. Meet me in 20 minutes. Same church. Bring the file. Erin hesitated. You still haven't told me the truth. Kennedy's voice turned sharp. I will, but not over the phone. And not when someone's life's on the line. She paused, then nodded. On my way. As she stepped out into the DC night, wind swirling around her, she had one thought. This wasn't just about two men fighting in a Senate room anymore. This was about a System 1 that would kill to keep its secrets. Erin arrived at the church just after midnight. The city felt quieter than usual. Not empty, but watchful. Like someone was holding their breath, waiting for something to go wrong inside. Kennedy sat in the last pew, hands clasped, not praying, just still. When Erin stepped in, he turned without surprise. Like he had felt her presence before she entered. She handed him the briefcase. They have Jenna, she said. They sent me a photo, told me to stop digging, said nothing else. Kennedy placed the briefcase on the bench beside him and didn't open it. He just stared forward. They've shown her face. It means they're trying to scare you, not silence you. Yet. Tat doesn't help her. Erin snapped. No, he agreed. Quietly. But it means there's still time. She hesitated, then asked the question that had haunted her since the file opened. What is the Triangle Fund? Kennedy exhaled, as if pushing back years of weight. It started in 2006, a shadow fund, supposedly for emergency defense research. But it was never about defense. It was a money pipeline, untraceable transfers through shell companies, defense contractors, private intel firms. Billions vanished. Why the name? Erin asked. It ran through 3 cities, Washington, Geneva, and Riyadh. Erin's eyes widened. International? It was global, Kennedy said. And it was bipartisan. Schiff didn't create it. He inherited it, but he fed it, protected it. And he made sure journalists, inspectors, and even presidents never got close. And you? She asked. I was a young senator. I got a briefing by mistake. I asked too many questions. So they offered me a seat at the table. I sat down once, just once, and then I ran. She didn't blink. And now? Now I'm trying to burn the table down. Outside, a black SUV rolled past the church, slowed, didn't stop. Then drove on. Inside, Erin turned toward him, whispering, Why come forward now? 'Cause I knew Schiff would slip, Kennedy said. He always wanted the spotlight. And the moment he insulted me on national television, I knew something bigger was boiling under the surface. That outburst, that wasn't strategy, that was fear. He leaned closer, and fear means vulnerability. Suddenly, the side door of the church creaked open. Erin turned fast, reaching into her bag. Not for a weapon, for her voice recorder, but It was only Claire Kennedy's aide. She stepped in, eyes wide, breath sharp. They've found Jenna. Kennedy stood instantly. Alive. Claire nodded. Live, but barely. Safe house in Virginia. FBI's involved now. Quiet unit. Someone high up wants this off the books. Aaron's eyes narrowed. Then why tell us? Claire stepped forward, handing Aaron a flash drive, because Jenna had time to leave a message. On this, Aaron took it with trembling hands. Claire continued, "We also got a name someone Schiff's been dealing with directly. International wire logs, huge transfers over the last 5 months." Kennedy asked. "Who?" Claire paused. "Diplomat. Russian, high-level, not intelligence, economic name. Lev Mikhailov." Aaron went pale. She had seen that name in the Triangle Fund file. Next to Kennedy's, she looked up, voice low. "Mikhailov's not just a banker. He's the fixer. He moves the money between governments and the private firms. If Schiff's been meeting him," Kennedy finished her thought. "Then the fund's active again," Claire added. "More than that. There's chatter encrypted traffic suggests a transfer's scheduled. One last move, a clean-out." Aaron felt the gravity shift in the room. When 3 days, Geneva. Kennedy grabbed his coat. "Then we go now." Aaron blinked. "We. You're the only one with a full copy of the file. You've earned your seat at the table, Ms. Voss." "The right way." Claire handed her a passport. "Fake credentials. It's journalist cover. If they catch you, we deny everything." Aaron stared down at the name. Natalie Cross. Kennedy offered a grim smile. Fitting. "You're about to cross into the lion's den." As they stepped out into the cold night, the wind picked up. Signal. A warning. They weren't chasing a scandal anymore. They were chasing ghosts across borders. And someone, somewhere, had just activated the most dangerous fund in modern history. Geneva's air felt sterile, like everything had been scrubbed clean, too clean, from the rooftop of the Intercontinental. Aaron watched the lights of the diplomatic quarter flicker below. Somewhere behind those walls, the final transfer of the Triangle Fund was being orchestrated. Billions were about to disappear into a network of private war machines, front organizations, and corrupt allies. Kennedy stood beside her, dressed in a tailored coat, hands in his pockets. His calm demeanor didn't fool her. His eyes were sharp, calculating, waiting. Claire's voice crackled over the earpiece. "Mikhailov just entered the Montreux room. Schiff is with him. Unmarked security on both exits." Kennedy didn't blink. "Good. Let them settle. Let them believe no one's watching." Aaron glanced at him. "You're really going to walk in there?" He nodded. "This ends tonight." 10 minutes later, inside the marble corridors of the Montreux conference hall, soft jazz played over the speakers. Lavish chandeliers sparkled above men in dark suits. Smiles painted. Drinks untouched. At the center table, Lev Mikhailov sipped espresso like a man with nothing to fear. Beside him sat Adam Schiff, calm, composed, and unusually pale. Kennedy entered like a storm wrapped in velvet. No security, no entourage. Just him with Aaron 3 steps behind, holding a small silver briefcase. Schiff saw him first. His face froze. "You shouldn't be here," he said, rising slightly. Kennedy didn't stop walking. "Few said I was. A thug. So I figured I'd crash the party." Mikhailov raised a brow. "We were told this was a closed negotiation." Kennedy smiled. "Funny. I was told the Triangle Fund no longer existed." Mikhailov leaned back, amused. "Ah, so the cowboy wants to save the Republic with a grand gesture." Kennedy dropped the file on the table. The full Triangle Fund dossier. Every name, every transaction, every covert operation. Aaron slid a small recorder onto the table and pressed play. Jenna's voice echoed out. "If you're hearing this, it means I got out. It means they're still afraid of the truth. The fund. isn't just about money, it's about leverage. It funds coups, it topples regimes. It's not run by one party, it's run by power itself. Mikhailov's face darkened. Schiff's hands twitched. Kennedy leaned forward, voice low. I'm giving you one chance. End the transfer, shut it down. Or I hand this file to every journalist, senator, and embassy on this block. By dawn, you'll be the face of international treason, Krylov chuckled. You think exposing us will bring change? You think nations care about proof? The world runs on deals, not justice. Kennedy smiled. That's the difference between you and me. I don't need them to care. I just need them to see it. At that moment, Claire's voice crackled in. We're live. Feeds are up. Every network, even Al Jazeera and CNN. The cameras in your briefcase are transmitting. They heard every word. Schiff shot to his feet. You son of a Kennedy. Cut him off. You spent decades building a lie. Now the truth is free. Mikhailov's security moved, but before they reached the table, the Swiss Federal Police stormed in. Everyone stay seated. This is a diplomatic seizure. You are under investigation for unauthorized financial transfers under international banking law. Aaron stepped back, heart pounding. It was over. No, it was just beginning, as officers led Schiff and Mikhailov away. Kennedy turned to her. We lit the match. Aaron nodded. Now let's see what burns. Outside the sky over Geneva cracked with thunder, and somewhere, deep in the bowels of government buildings across the world, alarms had just started ringing. The Triangle Fund was exposed, but the war for the truth had just begun. 3 weeks later, the world had changed, not in headlines, not in revolutions, but in whispers, in corridors. In dark rooms where men once made decisions no one dared question, the Triangle Fund was no longer a conspiracy. It was front-page news in every language. Geneva had become ground zero for an international reckoning. Adam Schiff faced hearings in closed sessions. His political career was in freefall. Lev Mikhailov vanished before his trial. Some said extradited to Moscow. Others whispered darker endings. But the money trail lived on. Erin Voss had seen to that. In a secure room at the Washington Post, she handed over copies of every file. Every recording, every message Jenna had smuggled out. Within days, major networks were broadcasting segments of the fund's operations Black Ops. Rigged elections, arms to regimes the U.S. had publicly condemned. It wasn't just a scandal. It was a mirror. Kennedy didn't hold a press conference. He didn't return to the Senate floor. He knew better. Too many hands were still dirty. Too many shadows still watching. Instead, he met Aaron at a small fishing dock on the edge of Lake Pontchartrain, Louisiana. Just before sunrise, "You're not going back to D.C., she said. No. He replied, not after this. Afraid? He smiled slightly. Realistic, Aaron pulled a folded letter from her jacket. The Post is nominating you for the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Quietly. He didn't even look at it. Let them give it to Jenna. She bled for this more than I ever did. Aaron nodded. Jenna was safe now, recovering in an undisclosed facility. Her memory was fractured, but her testimony had shaken pillars of power. Kennedy. Watched the Stillwater all those years. I thought exposing the truth would feel like victory, like justice. And now, Irene asked. Now it feels like survival, like a warning. She sat beside him, silence stretching like the horizon. Will the Triangle Fund rise again? She asked finally. Kennedy didn't answer at first. Then, softly, truth is, it never really died. They'll rename it, repackage it. A new city, a new code name. Because power doesn't surrender, it adapts. Aaron turned to him. Then why fight? He looked at her for a long moment, then pointed to the rising sun. Because the light still matters. Behind them, a phone buzzed. Aaron checked it. A message from an unknown number. New transfers. Asia Pacific Corridor. You were right. It's still alive. She didn't react, just slipped the phone into her coat and stood. Kennedy stayed seated, watching the sky turn gold. Erin looked back once. "We'll keep going," she said. Kennedy nodded. "That's all we can do." The wind picked up, the world spun on, and in the quiet places, in stories, in files, in the brave defiance of truth-tellers, the fight continued, because some wars aren't won in a day. They're won in the choosing.